Hi everyone, it's Scott here from Remax East Coast Elite Realty, and as promised, we're here for this Friday's episode of Hometown Proud. We're out here at Little's Lumber on the Frog Lake Road just outside of Harvey. This is a company owned by Marwood, been around for a long time. You're going to be fascinated with this one. Let's go check it out. Okay, we're inside what we call the Reman building out here, and I'm going to let these two lovely people to the right of me, ladies first, going to let them introduce themselves, tell us who we are.
I'm Laura Bernard, and a site coordinator here.
And I'm Mitchell Little, and I am retired from here.
All right, well, starting things off, tell us a little bit about the building we're sitting in. What is this?
This building is the remanufacturing building. This is where we would manufacture a lot of our value-added products, as well as like our hand barrels, our stair risers get chopped up in here. We have a chop room in there that does with just various decking components and products that we make for Marwood to feed the specialty program.
So this is one of the reasons we chose in here, I guess, is probably one of the quieter locations out around here for today. So maybe we'll go right back to the start. So maybe put it over to you, Mitch. Tell us a little bit about, give us just something on the history. How old?
The history, well, this place started in 75. And I had seen an old machine sitting in a hayfield, and from the time I was born, I loved machinery, and anything that moved or turned, I was hanging off it or whatever. And this thing that I seen in the field with grass growing over happened to be a shingle machine for sawing cedar shingles. So at the time I was buying an old antique tractor he had from him, so I got that and forgot all about the shingle machine for a year or two. And then as I got a little older, I thought, I think we should maybe have that. So I went out and I bought it for, I can't even remember how much. It wasn't very much, but it seemed like a lot to me. So I come home and drug it into the yard. And so then I went to Steve and I said, how would you like to own half a shingle mill? He said, great, sounds like a good idea. So, I mean, I couldn't afford to buy it was $500 for the machine. And I said, we got to split the money on her. We can't afford that because we just was starting with nothing. And so anyway, that's how it got started, and we sawed cedar shingles for what? Steve sawed most of the shingles, and that would have been, how many? We had it 6 years going? Yes. And but we only had it a couple of years operating, and then Steve come one day and he said, I see an old sawmill for sale down in, where was that down? Gary area. Anyway, he said, I think we should go get it. And I said, well, we might as well. So anyway, that just took us down that road. And we had the trucks we had to drive back then was hardly safe to be on the road. And I think we went the back roads because probably nothing was licensed on them. But we bought this old sawing machine down in there, sawmill that had a carriage and an edger and an old antique diesel engine that was running it. So drug that home, and while we were sawing shingles, we started putting that together at the same time, and so the first year was really pretty crude on that thing. So we kept working away and kept sawing shingles, and then we decided to put this mill together, I guess, after that, and so we started sawing lumber, and thanks to a good neighbor of ours, Earl Patterson. He, I get sort of sentimental when I say that. He stuck his neck out for us one spring, and he put his whole cut of logs in the mill for us, and not a penny down. And then he said, when you get done, he said, you pay me when you get done. And he said, and then we'll be all fine. And that's when everything was busy with the plywood mill in Macadam, and everybody said to him, "Why are you doing that?" And he said, "These guys need a chance." And so really, if it hadn't have been for him, it's hard to say if we would have survived that, because it was right early on. And but anyway, we did. Had a couple of good years and thought we was doing great. So we bought a planing mill, little planer mill down in Augusta, brought that home, and that was about the time the economy went about as far down in the country as it was. So from going broke even, we went to dead broke again. And so it was a struggle just to get started and going. But I mean, we were young, we were interested, and we had a lot of good people around with us when we did get started that stayed with us and treated it like they owned it themselves, and that carries on to today. Yeah.
So that was all on this property right
It
here?
was all on this property. This building or nothing was here at that time. This is the back end of our old farm, and so that's why the shingle machine get put down here instead of sight and sound. So yeah, so it just we saw it for a few years, and then a friend of mine, he had a businessman. He had a person die on him, and he was trying to set up a plant. So he asked me if I'd go help him. So I turned around and I went in, and I stayed with them for pretty near a year until they got that straightened around. And then I come back home again, and Steve had stayed and looked after the mill and worked away at that. So when I come home, I said, well, I'd learned quite a bit from where I was working, just about business and everything. So I said, I think we're going to start and take some chances, and we're going to start buying some stuff. So that's really when we started, and we started by buying a little four-sided planer and making, it was a type of molding, but a very simple molding for Marwood. They were a help from us right from the start as well, and once we got working with them, they just took us in like we owned the place and everything, and they were good. But we started that winter just a little simple job with 4 people. That was the first time we'd worked year-round, because we were seasonal before that. So yeah, that took us to that point, and then we started buying more molders, and we even had a finger jointing machine in here for so many years. And as the Chinese took over, that sort of put us out of business because nobody could compete. And all the wood too was raw wood, like none of it was painted or anything like that. So the paint got in, so that's what took us out of manufacturing the moldings and stuff. But we still sell moldings, but they're coming in from other places. Yeah. So yeah, that's a bit of that end of the history anyway, I guess. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a lot of history. Laura, you probably heard all that, know all that, right? A couple times. Yeah, a couple times before. So one thing I do want to ask, I guess, and we're kind of fast forwarding here, but I've posed this question, I think, to a few businesses around, but as we know, COVID kind of changed the world for everybody, the world we live in. How did that affect, how did you guys navigate your way through that? Was there any difficulties? I'm sure there must have been some difficulties and challenges. But
it was a challenge. We had our human resources and our safety team from Marwood assist us in making sure that we were operating safely, safe distancing, and following all the guidelines and regulations. And we got very busy. We were running probably with our highest amount of employees at the time for that about a year or so. Very fortunate that we all got to keep working and that we have the team that works so hard to keep us here.
So speaking of employees, how many do you have here now? Roughly?
35 here now, full-time, year-round.
Yes, and that's year-round.
Yep.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit, and with the interjection of Marwood, I might have bypassed that a little bit, I guess. Yep. Tell us about the involvement in the structure with that.
With Marwood taking over or whatever? Well, in 2003, was it? 2003, that Marwood took ownership of this place, and I'd worked really well with Mike O'Donnell's and people in in Tracy for years, and I went to him one day because Stephen had left for different adventures at that time and and the stress was getting the best of me because I was putting too much of myself into it. So I went to them and I said, I think it's time that you owned us. Everything we'd done was working for them at that time. We had a little bit of retail sales here, but it was mostly with them. So anyway, it took a year. He said, yeah, I'll have to put it through to Ross and go from there. And Ross immediately said, we'll just buy it. And so, but anyway, it took a year before it happened, actually. And so they took it over, and we went into the building the next morning where all the people were sitting waiting to go to work, and said, well, you fellas have been talking for a long time that this place is going to shut down, it's going to get taken over, it's not going to be here, and all sorts of stories. Well, I said, today the story is true. I said, we sold the place. And everybody's face dropped, and we're going to lose our jobs now and everything. And I said, no, they did not buy this place to take jobs away. They bought this place to hire more people and make more business because they knew what the company was here, and they were in full support. So, yeah, so that's how we walked into it, and it was a pretty easy step to get over. And instead of me retiring, I said, well, I'll hang around for a year or two and sort of help do stuff. And I think it was 17 years later, just before COVID came out, I decided to retire. And so I retired, and then COVID struck, and everything stopped anyway for a few years. So, yeah, so that's a quick and dirty story of what it's been to this point, or that point anyway. But I enjoyed working for them as well because I had full access, and I did some work in Tracy. I did some work. I was across the border in Nova Scotia a few times, and I was down in Maine a few times removing machinery and stuff. And it was all just what I loved to do, and couldn't wait to go someplace if something was going to be dismantled or rebuilt or whatever. So, yeah. So no, it was a good thing, and they did do what they said. They didn't run it 2 years and shut it down. They're still as anxious to see it go today as they were that many years ago.
Did that transition change or bring any new products or anything?
It didn't, because we made most of the products that they were needing anyway. We started, when they started molding, we started making the moldings for them until they got big enough and sales got big enough that they put their own machines in. So we were sort of the startup for them, and the testers, and find out flaws and if it would work, if it wouldn't work. So we did that on quite a few different products. So, yeah. So no, it was a good relationship, and it went good. Yeah.
And what year did you step into all
I
that?
come along in 2005. Coming out here, was working in Fredericton and wanted to work somewhere closer to home, and Mitch brought me on in the office with Marwood, and just grew from there. Couldn't help but see where Mitch was trying to take the place, and the full support of Marwood, and how much Marwood supports this community and the families that work here, and the local people that have food on their table because they keep the business going here. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
So tell us some of the different products that you produce here. What do you give us a little rundown? I know I noticed a product when I come in there, I believe, are pre-manufactured stairs.
Yeah, the stair or risers, and then we manufacture the treads as well. Some different handrails, spindles, deck posts. Our main line is probably our sawmill we saw year round. It's hemlock and red pine that we saw here. We have a planer building that addresses most of what we saw.
And we have a dry kiln that works. It ran 24 hours a day for years, and then it got so the small kilns were getting sort of slow, and Marwood built some big kilns of their own. So we still have a kiln that we operate a few times a year, I guess, still, but mostly for a product that Steve's selling and stuff. And yeah. So, yeah.
So I will tell people that if you hear a voice in the background here, there's probably somebody that we've left out of this interview. But and I think he's here just to double check and correct on everything, but that's your brother.
That's my brother, and he really was the only reason that we got it started and going, and was instrumental. It never would have happened without him, but he's sitting on the back line today, but he's been as important a part as we did different things, and he was as important what he did as what I thought I was doing what I did, I guess. So, yeah.
That's nice to hear. That's a good story just in itself right there. Definitely a success story. But,
yeah, pretty pleased with what it did turn into. And like I say, the company we worked for was probably the main savior of all of that, because lumber over the last 50 years has went through a lot of changes, and so what we have done is sort of stayed up in tune with what they were doing, and being a big enough business, they have lots of markets, and they made a lot of pieces of some of these crazy things that we did make for them. So I guess that's when that was that way, yeah.
Well, you've seen a lot of changes through the raw product. You're taking, right from the trees coming into the finished product here, so you're involved in...
The trees coming in now, I think Laura probably answered this better and higher, Stephen, but I don't think we bring in more wood to remanufacture than what we actually saw in the sawmill. Is that right?
Our hemlock program, the more for the feeds the timber program from our wood, as well as all our solid stock and everything. We have a little retail yard here where products that maybe aren't as in high demand or aren't used for our value-added program will get sold in the little retail yard that we have here. And a lot of our pine are for different marwood programs that you mentioned, and different products that we manufacture to sell to them. So a lot of our risers and trades and things like that require specific species, and if we don't saw it here, then we will bring it in to feed that program, supply its raw material.
So people can drop by and come to the retail office, buy your product out here?
Yeah, the boys we have 4 guys that work really hard at making sure that no wood goes to waste. So we're reworking, or we're putting in the retail, and Stephen stays on top of making sure customers are buying lumber that they require for little jobs, and try to.
So with all we don't want to get this into a political debate at all, but I mean, with all the rising conversations that have been out there, now we got the election behind us, I guess, but any concerns or effects that are on the horizon for you? I mean, we've all heard the tariffs, and we know the lumber industry is a big part of our resources in this province, but any thoughts on any of that? Concerns, panic button?
Luckily, we have, like I said, the Marwood team and the leaders down the Marwood are well in tune with what is going on out there, and they've got our back, and they're making sure that we're hoping for a minimal effect, but we do have people working hard to make sure. It's a very diversified company and into a lot of different programs in different areas, and hopefully that we can get through it with minimal disruption, I guess.
We survive or go.
Yeah.
That's what we do. This business itself, the whole story is a good story of survival. So it's nice to see that being carried on with a larger company, kind of keeping you under their umbrella, I guess.
And I mean, too, we have employees here that have worked here their entire life, and some of them are in their 70s now.
Wow.
Yeah, since we started, they've been here.
Yeah, that's pretty important. It plays a pretty important role in the...
Definitely, we wouldn't be anything without the crew that we have working here.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you see or hope for in the future?
Keep rolling, keep sawing, keep people in the local community working, and it's good job, and we're working for the owners group of Mark. They're incredible to work for.
They're always looking for new opportunities too. Like, I mean, they have people that's working way ahead of where they are, just sort of breaking the pathway through, or whatever you would say about that. But I think they never stop, and they're, because I mean, we really have never, in the time we've been affiliated with Marwood after they bought us, like we've just went straight ahead, and we've even come up with some of our own things to do and stuff, and just kept adding them in and making weird things, like, like we've made little corners for the outside corners for gyprock walls and stuff, made those, and the 4-piece ones, and very complicated to look at, but once we got it made, it was very simple to do. Like, we mass produced those for quite a while, things, little jobs like that. And then the finger jointer, it was sort of a green onion tryout, but we did make some finger jointed moldings and stuff for a couple of years with that, and then we needed the space for that molder over there when it come in, so of course the finger joiner left town. I think it's still sitting there someplace, but it's out of sight.
And like the moldings and stuff with that industry at the time was headed more towards paper moldings, and so we still have that program and sales guy that looks after. We've purchased, with a partner of ours, we purchased the interior moldings and bring them in, and now I have sales reps that looks after selling that and molding that and delivering.
Mm-hmm. What's one of the biggest challenges that you've faced, if you had anything come to mind?
Over the years?
Over the years in general.
Just up and down years would have been the worst thing. Like we a couple of times would have come close to closing down over market conditions and things, but I mean, they were big market conditions. It was like almost all of the country was in a depression. Like when we bought our first planer down in Augusta, we brought that up here, and like I said earlier, I guess we got it up here and thought we was going to make all kinds of money, and the bottom fell out everything for 2 years after that, and we were sitting trying to figure out how to make the payments on that thing, but it turned around and we were still there and come out through it. Yeah. So, no, we've been lucky. We've had, like I said, just like the people that's helped us get along on our way to get here and stuff, like, we've had a lot of support, and it's because of a small community, I think.
It is. It's something that's very important, I think, and it seems like, you strike me as the type of person that likes to get up and come to work.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody I see around here is smiling and seems to be happy, and must be a reason why you've had some long-term employees here. So.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, everybody on the crew they're well aware that we're here to make sure that the products get out properly and good quality. They take pride in what they're doing and what they're manufacturing. So they take safety is a major priority, and we learn all that from the way he taught us how to do stuff and what his goal was and where it was going. And Marwick kind of has the same thing, and we're all just on board. And
I had to drive on the mechanical side of it, because that's what I liked. I liked to be building the next thing. And Laura was the same thing in the office. She just took control of that immediately, and has done a wonderful job at that. And she's never really forgive me for retiring on her and leaving her on the hook, because every once in a while I'll come down and she'll say, "I'm still mad at you because it'll be a bad day or something going on." But you don't have to worry, because it's looked after. Yeah.
Well, it seems like everything is flowing pretty good.
it is.
Pretty good out here.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think it's important? You've probably answered this question throughout it, I guess, but why do you think it's important for something like this to thrive in the community? I mean, this is a community-oriented sit-down interview. I like to hear what people have to say about this.
There's people that need this kind of work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people that need the work, and like I said, it makes a big difference in your work day when you've got to travel to Fredericton, or if you can work somewhere local. And as I said, to get up in the morning and know that you're going to work to make somebody else money, but you're going to work to make somebody money that would be right there on the line right beside you to do it with you. So the ownership and the leadership that's around here is really.
Harvey is home,
Harvey's home.
where you want to be.
Well, talking about how committed people are, with every once in a while we'd be making a profile product and somebody would get some numbers mixed up and we'd make a few thousand feet of the wrong of the wrong size of it. And the people that did it felt worse than we did. You know, they just took that right to heart, that was, you know, it was them and they did it and they were responsible for it and felt terrible, but it's going to happen. I don't think there would be anybody that's ever been in this building that hasn't done the same thing. I know I have a few times. Yeah.
Well, it seems like the umbrella that this is under is a very good fit for protecting that community, I guess.
Spirit.
They definitely support the community and are involved in helping out wherever they can in the community.
And I think it was the Creelman family that started all of that. Ross's parents probably and stuff, because that was just their way, right? When before they even became the name Marwood. Yeah.
A lot of history. What's your hours out here? People want to drop by and see you.
We're 8 to 4:30 Monday to Friday.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, closed on holidays, and try to get the word out. If there is anything that happens during closure or anything, but 8 to 4:30 Monday to Friday.
All right. Well, for anybody that hasn't been here and wants to have some product for their projects, come on out and see these lovely folks out here at Little's Lumber, Marwood. Thank you both for taking the time to sit down with me today.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.